So I want to dedicate this story to utopians, whatever form that takes. The people who think that they can just come up with the perfect plan, the perfect structure to society. Everything will be hunky dory, and we'll all live in harmony. And the lion and the lamb will lay down together. This story is dedicated to you because this is never, if your utopian philosophy doesn't account for people like this, it's useless because these people exist and they exist in great numbers. We're going to call this one civilization proof. There's some people that just are not going to be domesticated. It's not going to happen. They seem to exist to different extents in almost every culture and background. But this one, it's fitting. The one I'm going to talk about today, it's fitting that he's from Afghanistan because this is a graveyard of empires. It's a part of the world you might call civilization proof if you want to be unkind.
It's a place where the United States spent 20 years to replace the Taliban with the Taliban.
Yep. And the Soviets did more or less the same thing. And the Chinese are probably going to give it a try. So we'll see how that, good. And I wish good luck to them. Good luck, Mr. Xi. Whatever. The last guy who had any luck was Alexander the Great. And he had to marry into one of the warlord families, in any kind of, and probably knowing Greek culture, he had to do some other things.
Also, the records aren't that great. I'm not going to pretend that Afghanistan was functional just because one Greek guy went through there. I've seen how Greek people run their own country.
They were at one point a Buddhist country. They could have been another Tibet in another timeline. They're Tibet. Instead, it's this is where the Buddha statues were.
That pile of rubble.
Yeah, we blew up. But this guy, so it's fitting. He came in. His parents were very hardworking immigrants. They just wanted to give their kid every advantage, and of course, he became just a delinquent. And by the time I encountered him, he was in his early 20s. He's already a hardened thug. Now, the guy's name's Massey, and you can't put on a ledger like drug dealer when you're running a club. So you have to have a team of promoters. And the promoters of these kids, usually they through a shell corporation sometimes, depending how clever the promoter is. But these are the kids that go out and they offer to sell bottles to people on the street, and they will assure people usually, there'll be other accoutrements available in the club. They'll just talk to me in the club. So Massey was one of these promoters. And, he was just, essentially like a house dealer for the people I was working for. So he was always around. I got to see him. He was the sketchiest guy. He's the kind of guy who he wanted to maximize his profit in every interaction. So he would spray his marijuana with Coca-Cola. You worry about them putting Coke in that almost never happens. But
how does this make it more profitable for him?
Okay, so it adds weight. And it makes it look, because of the sugar kind of crystallizes and makes it look to the untrained eye, makes it look like a shiny, trichrome frosted bud. And then he'd put it in the freezer. Because he didn't want to lose even that little bit of weight that might evaporate off in the curing process.
So he's the used car dealer of drug dealers.
He's just every sketchy thing he could do, he did. He was just the least ethical fucking guy. He had, at one point, an Asian girlfriend that came in and was just basically his maid. She'd clean up after him, and he figured out that by the time they broke up, he was just throwing the ashtray on the floor. What do you know? Don't worry, she'll come and clean it up. He wouldn't empty the ashtray in the garbage. He just would throw it on the floor. And she eventually left, but he just kept throwing the ashtray on the floor. So it's just she'll come back. Now, the first thing that you got to understand is everything I'm about to tell you is taxpayer funded. Massey, if you were to look at Massey's tax records, you wouldn't know that he was a promoter. You would think that he was, somebody on Ontario Works on our welfare program, because every month he got a check, and he got a rent subsidy, and he got all these things for being unemployed.
Oh, so that's where my tax dollars go.
Yeah, exactly. And if he got robbed, if he fucked up, he always had another check coming in, once a month to restart his business. So he always had that, that going on. What kind of things would he, do? I'm trying to think of stories that kind of sum him up. He told me one time, he's yeah, when I first moved to Toronto, I wanted to see how long it took to evict somebody. So I just didn't pay rent. I moved into this condo and I just didn't pay rent. And like the lady would come and yell at me, but like it took them like 9 months to kick me out, and I got 9 months of free rent.
Talk about civilization. At the end of the day, underneath everything, you have a guy with a stick coming around to enforce laws. And if you don't have the guy with a stick, you don't have laws.
Yep, and that's Massey. Massey, fittingly enough, he was like, much like Ricky from Trailer Park Boys, he was motivated just solely by his most base instinct at any given moment. And one of the ways this manifested is he had a sex addiction. Like, I don't know what, like, I guess the guy's like basically a goldfish in terms of stimulus response. I don't know if you can call it a sex addiction at that point. Like, but he was the guy, he talks story, like, you go down to like, this used to be before the internet was a thing, before everybody had a smartphone and this was all done online. Prostitutes would just walk up and down the street of like poor neighborhoods in Toronto. And there'd be, usually a line of like family vehicles from the suburbs coming in to like, do business with these girls and then go back to the Mississauga or wherever. He, being Massey, figured out all those girls, man, they'll blow you for $20. You get them in the car, they want to get something out of it, and $20 is a hit of crack. So like you're offering them a hit of crack, they want to get something out, they'll all suck your dick for $20. So he figured out the lowest amount of money he could give these that they would accept for oral sex.
A lot of economics is bullshit. Supply and demand isn't, and because you have empirical evidence right here.
If you want to go to jail or get busted, just sell cocaine. I don't know what it is about that drug. I think it's because you have to be close to importers. You have to be in a chain that goes back to very bad people. The one theory is if you ask like criminals, they'll say cops love fucking blow, man. They love it, so they always want an evidence locker full of blow. Because like then they can like some of it can walk off and they can get them fixed. Man. That's what it's all. Anyway, that's the urban legend about why. Like realistically, I don't know. But it's a drug with not insignificant social fallout because remember, like some of it gets cooked into crack. So like, yeah, you got the mayor doing whatever. It's not, that's not usually how it manifests. But anyway, so he's a dealer. Now, again, Massey, of course, sold coke because he wasn't enough, he would sell drugs. And again, being from Afghanistan, he was a purveyor of other substances that were, somewhat less reputable than cocaine. So he was just a purveyor of these substances, and he gets a call. But he was very charming. He was very slick. He could always, talk to the cops. He could disappear, when he needed to. He's like a wild animal. He had that kind of sense of danger. Like it's just, But he gets a call from one of his buddies, and another promoter. Can you please do a chop? I got to get this chop done. I don't want a chop. It's a drug sale. And Massey said, yeah, no problem. I'll do the chop for you. And he gets a description, okay, meet this guy down here. He'll come in the van. And he gets in the van and it's a girl, not a guy. So he should have known instantly that that this was a setup. He should have known. This
is like a Bugs Bunny and Elmer Fudd scenario, only with sketchy Afghani drug dealers.
I was like, why did you make a chop, Massey, when you got in the car? Like, I wanted the money. Just can't think more than a step ahead. Just to make I already got in the car. I wanted to get something out of it. Now this brings a raid down on Massey's head. And we don't have a SWAT team in Toronto. We have what's called we have the ETF, the Emergency Task Force. And it amounts to a SWAT team, basically. These are the guys who kick your door in with the little machine guns. So they kick the door into his freaking little bunkered place. And he throws his coat. He sees them coming in, and he throws his coat on the table where all his cocaine is. And these guys rip his place apart. They're looking everywhere, but they never check under his coat on the table.
So he is like Ricky. He is a savant when it comes to being one step ahead of the cops.
He was a genius. He used to tell me, this guy drove like a maniac. And he would very rarely get tickets because he's like, hey, you act really depressed and stupid, and like that, the cops just let you go. He drove around in I remember he's on welfare. He's driving around in a Jeep, a fancy Jeep with truck nuts.
Again, I put my money into the fucking tax kitty so that this guy can drive a Jeep, a nice new Jeep.
And it takes many, many of you to pay for one Massey. Because we're not anywhere near. We're like, if anyone can do a running total of what this is costing the system, and remember, he's collecting a welfare check while he does this. So and to getting all kinds of government help from this. So the raid's botched. They didn't find the coke, but they found all of his marijuana and his paraphernalia, like all his scales and baggies and everything. So he goes to court, and he gets released on bail. Like he's released he's put on probation. They say, look, we're not going to put you in jail. All we found was weed. We don't want to put you in jail just for weed. So we're going to put you on probation. There's going to be some circumstances that you're going to have to obey to stay out of jail. Otherwise, you're going to have to go to jail for the remainder of your probation. Okay, no problem. So one of the things is he's got to be in bed, or he's got to be in his house at 10 o'clock, and he's got to stay there till 8 a.m. He doesn't have a monitoring bracelet on, nothing, so he's just ignoring it. And he decides one night, in the middle of the frickin' night, that he wants some chicken. Now, at this point in Toronto, there's only one place you go in the middle of the night for chicken if you're just a complete piece of shit, and that's George's Deli. So he pulls up George's Deli. Now, it just so happens that the bail and this is these are guys who know their business, these bail compliance officers, because that's a good spot. That's where I'd say.
Yeah, you get the guide to tell you the best fishing spot on the lake, right?
Exactly. It was this perfect place to catch people. If you told me, Jay, freaking where are you going to bust guys breaking bail, I would go to George's Chicken. And they were running everybody's license plate who came up to George's Chicken to see if the car was registered to somebody with conditions.
Yeah.
And they found that, lo and behold, Massey's out there breaking curfew. So they go into the place. It's clearly they're, a game they played before. They go, oh, guys, whose car is that? It has to be moved. Oh, it's mine. Put your hands behind your back. So they take him to jail. And because he violated his conditions, he had to then go to jail for the remainder of his probation. So they put him in a brand new jail. Now we have historic jails in Canada. The Don Valley Jail, which was notorious because this thing was built before cameras were a thing. So there was all these blind spots. They could make horrible things happen basically. And it was a lot of it was really a poorly designed thing. So they built this new mega jail to house these inmates. And they lock Massey up in a box. And he's alone in the box up on the second floor of this jail. And as he tells the story, I was in the cell. And there was nobody to talk to or anything. So I look up and I see a bottle cap in the ceiling with a metal ring around. So I took my toothbrush and I got up on the side of the bunk. And I reached up and I started prying at it. And it turned out that was a sprinkler head.
Ah!
And he flooded his level of the jail and
the brand new jail.
And the jail below it. It was a lot of damage done. And again, then they had to put him in protective custody because all the other inmates wanted to kill him.
The property damage and the extra wages of this one guard who has to babysit him.
Yep. It's more expensive to keep somebody in extra.
Now,
protective custody.
My dad's from Glasgow, Scotland, and he said every month, up to a certain point, this was before he was born, but every month they would hang the 3 worst troublemakers in the gallows in the middle of the town square. If you were caught breaking into somebody's house, you'd better hope 3 people fucked up worse than you did that month. I'm starting to see the wisdom in that system. We think, no death penalty. This is supposed to be the enlightened way of doing things. Is this the enlightened way of doing things?
No, the enlightened way of doing things is you just have these fucking encampments full of zombies and goblins, and you just let them terrorize everybody. That's the enlightened thing to do. You don't put them in a hospital. You don't put them in a jail. You let them live in the park as goblins.
Singapore just seems to have the best or the most efficient use of dollars. Just bend over, let us whack you with a cane that moves 160 miles per hour.
It's cost effective.
Yeah.
It's very cost effective. I know what we're doing now doesn't work. I don't know what would. I have no solutions to the Masseys of the world, but this is just me bringing this problem to everybody's attention, because you don't really meet Masseys if you live a normal life. If you're a middle class person, you really don't interact with a Massey. But they'll exist in large numbers on the fringes of every society and at the bottom levels of society. You know, if you are utopian, you got to factor this in. You're never going to reason with this guy. You're never going to get him to behave. You're going to lock him in a box. He's still going to cost you millions of dollars. And then he's going to drive around with his truck nuts as he continues to freaking, collect the welfare check and deal drugs to fucking dumb kids in the freaking. If you want to know how fentanyl ends up in the coke supply, it's people like Massey control the club level coke supply. Now, you might ask, Jay, how do you know so much about this guy? Why'd you get so close to him? Well, I had a friend, and my friend had a problem. And he kind of needed a little bit of help to not, be stuck on opioids. So I stupidly, but it worked out. I said, okay, look, you can move in. He dried out at his parents' house. This guy is Jesse Pinkman. I started watching Breaking Bad because Ben told me that, oh my God, your friend is Jesse Pinkman. You gotta watch. And I watched it, and there was even more Jesse Pinkman shit. So he got hooked on H, and then he went back to dry out at his parents' place. He dried out at his parents' place, and then he called me up. And I said, you can move in with me. We'll get a place in Toronto, but you gotta straighten out. And if I catch you on any kind of opioids, you're gonna get all the painkillers that you ever wanted in intensive care. He was afraid of heights. I would threaten to dangle him by his ankles off the balcony of our place, which was on the 21st floor. This was sketchy. He wanted a really big place, so we moved into this big place at Sherbourne Dundas. Now, this is a notorious
Location.
notorious freaking intersection. At one point, it was the highest crime intersection in Toronto. I don't know if it still is, but at one point it was. And at this point, I was working for Moy's. I was working downtown, and a crew of bouncers. We moved into this building. We all got places in the same building, close to each other, and had like a little bouncer block where we kind of looked out for each other. But we moved into that, and one of the first nights we're out on the balcony, and we see this pimp chasing one of the boys into our alcove. And he's like, bitch, why you steal from me? Why you steal from me, bitch? He starts hitting her. And the girl's like, help, help, help. And then I hear somebody yell, shut up, bitch, you shouldn't have stolen this shit. And I was like, okay, we're no longer in freaking Neverland. All right. This lady came up to my buddy at one point and said, oh, son, it's like a nice looking black lady. And she goes, do you have she had a cigarette. And she's like, do you have a lighter? And he's like, yeah, sure, here. Light your smoke, hands to the lighter. Whips out a crack pipe. Starts taking hoots off the crack pipe. We're just like, you know what? You can keep that. Yeah. And she's just dancing and hitting the crack pipe. That's the kind of neighborhood it was.
When the pandemic hit in 2020, it was 10 days before I started seeing just straight crack pipes on the subway. That's, if you want to know how much society we have, how far we are away from absolute anarchy, 10 days from everything running hunky-dory to crack pipes.
Yep. Doesn't take much.
On public transit.
The veneer of civilization is very, very thin. But I never got close to Massey, but Jesse Pinkman got very, very close to Massey. They were best buddies. I guess he was like the Badger of this shit crew. I don't know. He's like one of the sketchy people. He's like, immediately this guy has moves to Toronto. He's instantly got a sketchy little crew of these misfits that are just happen. Some people just summon minions. So Massey was kind of one of his minions. And that's how I got to see so much. So I always knew the state of he was clean when he lived with me, then he moved out. And I always knew the state of his addiction after that based on how much time he was spending with Massey. And eventually, he moved out of the city and he, got married and had kids and, happy and ever after. But one day he gets a call. Hey, it's Massey. Can I dry out at your place? Jesse Pinkman's like, I got kids and a wife. No, you can't come here. Oh, okay. I guess I'll just go die then. Okay.
He said thinks one step ahead.
And that's the thing. So that was That's what ended up happening. Even assuming he's dead, I'd love to see a bill. I'd love to know what one Massey cost the system. And I know there are many, many, many Masseys. I don't have any solutions. I'm not suggesting a pogrom. I don't think there's any way to, short of genetic engineering, you're not.
A lot of people have tried pogroming Afghanistan. It doesn't work.
Yeah, it doesn't work. These people are immune to it. You can't, they're civilization proof. I remember I was listening to a lecture at one point, and the guy was explaining that the Army gives you an intelligence test in the States. And if you're below a certain IQ, there's just nothing that even the Army can do with you. You're just a danger to yourself and others, and they can't figure out any kind of purpose.
Too stupid to be cannon fodder.
Yep, they can't reliably be cannon fodder. They can't be, they can't haul ammunition. They're just because if you leave them alone, they'll fuck off. So yeah, that's the story of Massey. And if you want to design a perfect society, you gotta first show me a really good plan for dealing with this kind of behavior and these kind of people, because they exist, and they're going to throw every monkey wrench into